Hello, this is I Do Damage, and welcome back to the channel. In this Wolcen Lords of Mayhem video, I want to talk about Endgame and the Endgame loop. The first thing you need to know about the Endgame is how do you access it. You complete the story, and then you come on the main menu, you'll go into Game Settings, and it's Champion of Stormfall. That is the actual Endgame mode. Now that you know how to access the Champion of Stormfall Endgame mode, let's talk about what you do within here. And the very first thing I want to say up front, and this is probably my #1 gripe with the Endgame, is this is all it is. This is where you'll be for all of the end game. There are expeditions and mandates that you can do, and we'll get to that here in a little bit, but really it's all instanced end game, and that's probably my #1 gripe. But let's talk about what you actually do in the end game. The first thing you need to know about, and this is really an interesting feature, I've seen features similar to this, like if you've ever played Super Mario Maker, but anyway, the way it works in Wolcen Lords of Mayhem is you have these different projects that you can do. And one of the very first ones you're going to want to finish is this node right here, the west portion of the palace, or whatever you want to call it. And this will unlock your 5th skill slot, but you come in here and you pay gold. So you'll use this purple resource called Primordial Affinity, which you get from, there's a couple different ways. One of the main ways you'll get it is from picking up Enraks on the ground, which are the way that you learn skills. And if you already know the skill, you can right-click on it to then earn 100 Primordial Affinity, which goes to your total. But what's really interesting about this is this third resource here is called Productivity. And the way that you get this basically is by just completing maps that I showed you with the expeditions. You can become more efficient with your productivity. You can see I have a base productivity of 400. This is my palace right here. It's a level 8 palace. And you can level it up and earn even more base productivity. And these go on, this is probably the most grindy part of the end game. It goes all the way up to 5 million gold to start it. It gets pretty crazy. But there's many other things you can do in here. You can expand your stash. There's crafting of sorts. There's even uber boss fights that you can do. You can upgrade item rarity, so you can go from rare to legendary, which is, I mean, I think it's awesome. You can upgrade the reagent and also quality. Quality is the star on these items. You can see how this acts as a 5-star quality. You can upgrade the quality there. And there's other things too. This is probably the next biggest part of this. And this is like if you've ever played like World of Warcraft and like their garrisons, or where you send your followers out, basically. You have the Seeker's Garrison, and you also have the Stormfall Trade Assembly. These are your two mission types that are repeatable. And you come in here, and whenever you complete one, a new one is generated, and they're randomly generated. Usually they give gold. I think this one gives a legendary reagent, which is huge for the crafting. You can get, there's also like items, different item types you can get. This one's pistols. And my favorite is the gold and affinity ones. You have to pay a little bit up front, but when they come back and succeed, you actually get a really big chunk of change, and it's pretty nice. And then here's the other one. I'll just kind of show you real quick. This one, so a large quantity of gold for this one. You can see the mission difficulty is hard. So I have to pay more gold up front, and it costs more productivity, but I'll be rewarded with more gold. So this is actually a really good way to invest. And when I first saw these missions, I was a little skeptical, but as I've been doing them, I always am doing them. I always make sure I at least have as many as I can have rolling of those. There's other things within here too. This is the last one I'll show you, and then I'll let you discover everything else for yourself. But you can convert gold into Primordial Affinity, which is a really nice feature, and this is actually a really valuable one. You can also convert the gold into Primordial Affinity, which I don't think is a high value, since Primordial Affinity is actually more rare than gold. But anyway. So that's your projects, productivity, leveling up your palace, and how all of that works. There's a lot more in here, and I will let you explore it for yourself so that I don't spoil everything. So how do you get that productivity? You do maps. There's 2 different types of maps. There's mandates, which are basically, they're just starter missions for if you're new, maybe you're not as geared, things like that. There's really no point. I think I haven't done any since the game's been out. I did them in beta to level up, but this is where the big chunk and the majority of your time will be spent, is inside of these actual expeditions. So the way that this works is when you first get here, all that you'll have unlocked is Adept. You won't see this veteran here. It'll look like this. It'll be locked. So you'll click on Adept, and you can add modifiers if you want. But once you get in here, if you clear 3 floors in a row, you'll then unlock the first difficulty, which is Veteran, and you'll unlock the level 43 version. What that number means is that is the level of the monsters you're fighting. I think I was around level 37, maybe 40 by the time I got to the end game. So the way it works is each floor is 1 level, and each floor you go up, it increases the monster level by 1. Completing 3 floors will unlock the next difficulty, so you can just go right back into the 46, 49, and it goes all the way up. I was pushing because I had a really overpowered build, and I actually got bored, so I didn't push on, but there's a whole nother one here. And this will actually go up to 187, will be the very last one here, and that's monster level, which also is your item level. That's how your item levels are determined when they drop on the ground. And if you clear 3 floors in there, you can get up to 190 then. So 190 is basically, in essence, the monster level cap. So you're probably wondering, what's the point in pushing on and going against higher level monsters? First of all, the higher monster levels are, the higher tier gems that you will find, and also the higher item level you'll find. So items are broken up into tiers, and you'll notice as you progress, you unlock, the items start to actually look different in their icons and stats. The stats become stronger the further up you go. I personally prefer to do 115. That's my personal sweet spot for farming the end game and doing these. Basically because I like to try out funky builds instead of really trying to push as high as possible. But that's just me, and that's personal preference. You can obviously push on more if you want. But the reason this is the sweet spot is you'll be getting the tier 12 gems, which look like this. I'll show you so that you know what you're actually looking out for. These eternal gems you can see is tier 12, and then tier 11 goes all the way down, obviously. So if you're doing the 115s, you're going to get the top tier gem. You're going to also be getting a chance to get the highest affixes in the game and having a chance for them to roll higher. I've heard that if you can clear 160 is the absolute best to get a higher chance for the top tier affixes. But at 115, you know, I like it. It feels good and it's fun. Now, this is the other thing, is you have this map slot, and also you can notice each level it goes up here, it increases the magic find productivity, stuff like that. So this map slot is a little bit interesting here. I'll show you one map I have. Basically, there's different map types that you can do. There's treasure, I think there's the wealth omens, which are pretty much your treasure goblins. They drop tons of gold, and bounties. The bounty ones are probably my least favorite. It pretty much, you just have to go through and find these certain number of boss monsters, and then the actual boss will summon. They're probably my least favorite. The omen ones and treasure ones are actually pretty rewarding. And then you also have these essences, which is pretty much just a dungeon that's full of wealth omens. There's ones that have chests, different types of things like that. But pretty much the way it would work, if I wanted to do this bounty hunt, I would just come over here and pop it in there. And then you can actually modify it, and it'll be a 1-floor map that has these bonuses on there that you have to go find the monsters, like I said. That's one version of the map. It can be a little bit confusing, but I'm going to try to make it as simple as I can for you. I want to take one step back to where I was talking about each floor. That's the very basic map that you would do, is just pick a number and try to clear 3 floors to unlock the next. After that is when you're going to want to do these maps. And that's more for farming. Where it really gets interesting, let's say I wanted to do a 145 map, whatever. So you can roll up to 5 modifiers, map modifiers, and it costs gold. You can pick out of 3. I tend to pick ones that are crowd control reduction or movement speed, since they don't do more damage and they're a little bit easier. But you can pick 1 out of 3, and then you can pay another gold. You can do up to 5 modifiers. It'll cap out here. So at 4, you can lure Untainteds for 1,000 primordial affinity. Or you can add another modifier if you want to make it even more challenging and more rewarding. And then once you have 4 or 5 modifiers, you can lure these Untainteds. And if you do that, you're going to unlock the Wrath of Carousel mode, which I will talk about next. Before that, I just want to say, if you do not lure the Untainteds, it'll be just like your other maps where you can clear 3 floors in a row with all these modifiers and bonuses. But if you want to do the Wrath of Carousel mode and lure these Untainteds, which I highly, highly recommend you do, because this is the only way that you can find Untainted Afixes in the game. So think of like Path of Exile's corrupted items. That's pretty much what Untainted Afixes are in Wolcen Lords of Mayhem. And the only way to get these affixes, other than on uniques, is from the score screen in the Wrath of Sarisal mode. Because the way the Wrath of Sarisal mode works is you're given a score at the end of the dungeon. There's no loot during the mode. There are treasure chests and things you can find that do drop loot, but the monsters themselves do not drop loot. And you really want to try to... It's based on speed, not dying. You can die 3 times in solo. You have 3 res tokens. And then if you're in multiplayer, you can res each other. Just don't both die or it's over. But you go through, it's 1 floor. Try to speed through, kill as many mobs, be as efficient as possible. And the highest rank you can get at the end is an S+, which looks like this. And you can see there's different items in here. And these loot that you can see on the score screen have a chance to have a Tainted Affix on it. Or Untainted Affix. So an example of one of these affixes is I have a belt here where I can get 1 ailment stack inflicted. That's +1. So instead of applying 1 ailment, with that belt, I can now apply an additional 1. So you can see how that can be huge. There's many others. I also found this bow where it allows me to cast Solar Fall. That's huge. And this is really where the true end game is for me, is trying to find crazy items that have those affixes that you wouldn't normally find. I think it's really fun and exciting. The only other way that you can get these Untainted Affixes is to socket one of these Genesis stones into an item and then consume that gem using one of the crafting materials. So there's different crafting materials in the game as well. I'm going to do just a very basic crafting overview. Maybe in the future I'll do more of an in-depth updated crafting guide. So you have the most common reagent. Each of the reagents comes in 2 flavors, the normal and the legendary version. Legendary can only be used on legendary, normal can only be used on rare or yellow items. So the most common one is these entropy orbs, and pretty much what it does is it just re-rolls all the magic effects on the item as if it just dropped on the floor again, and it just re-rolls all the stats. Yellows can have from 3 to 4 affixes, legendaries can have from 5 to 6 affixes. And I think I've used about 60 of these entropy orbs to try to get the best rolls for my material set for my Bleeding Edge build. And you're going to use a lot of them. And if you want to take it to the next level and try to guarantee a specific type of affix, you can put a gem in there before you consume it, and then it'll guarantee a roll based on the school of the affix. So I had thought, let's say I wanted to do attack, critical chance, score, and I want that affix. It doesn't guarantee that I will get that, even if it's the only gem on the item. It seems to be that it takes the Alexandrite, which is your attacks, spells, crit damage, block chance, and kind of selects from that category exactly which affixes it can roll in there. I'm not sure. But if you did like a rend type gem, you'd probably get one that did material damage or material resistance, or a rend type of affix. So I personally think it's a little bit weird. I wish that I could guarantee the affix like they had said in the blog post. But anyway, I won't ramble on about that. The next item here is the Abyssal Tier. This will actually remove a random magic effect from an item, and then it'll use the gem that's in the item to guarantee a magic effect based on the gem category. You'd pretty much want to use this if the item's almost perfect, but there's just one affix that you wish wasn't on there and you could instead have a different one. And these are really RNG, and they're not super dependable, but there's a high risk and reward here. So if you like to gamble and have a little something extra to do, it's there for you. And then the Ohm's Echo will remove a random one and then add another one based on the gem when used. If there's no gem in there, it'll just be randomized pretty much again, removing one magic and adding one random one. And by far the most rare and valuable crafting reagent in the game is the Airborne Tier. And this because this straight up adds an affix to the item. It's a random item based on the gem that you have. The gem categories that we've already talked about. So anyway, that's your basic crafting. I guess that was a little bit more in depth than I had really planned to do, but hey, there you go. It's part of the end game, part of the end game video. So we've pretty much talked about everything. So now you know everything there is to know about projects, expeditions, Sarisal mode, maps. That's really the whole end game. And in closing, I just want to say, for me, the end game is trying to find those Wrath of Sarisal, untainted items and affixes. I think it's really fun. And the other part of the end game for me personally is trying out funky builds that normally you wouldn't think worked, and seeing how high I can take them. A lot of them are not super, they're not going to kill 187 monsters. A lot of them are kind of middle when it comes to how high they can push, but hey, some of them are pretty fun builds. I found one where you use this ability and you can summon tons of health globes, and then if you use this ability, it sucks in the health globes and makes them all explode. It doesn't do a ton of damage, and it's not super great, but hey, it's fun. And I have a laugh while playing, so for me, that's personally the end game, as well as leveling up the palace and doing all those side missions that we talked about. I hope this video helps you get more of an inside look into the end game in Wolcen Lords of Mayhem. Maybe you learned something from the video. Don't forget, if you enjoy the content, please do like and subscribe. I post new videos every Monday and Friday, and sometimes some bonus videos just for you. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.